Salve, and welcome to Parsing John. Today we are in chapter 1, verse 38. This one is significantly longer than the last 3 verses we've taken a look at, so it'll be a bit of a longer video as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at our rubric. This is everything that we want to find as we go through this text to make sure that we have properly translated each of our words. And let's read it aloud. Conversus autem Jesus et videns eus sequentes se dicit eis quid quaeritis qui dixerunt rabbi, quod dicitur interpretatum magister ubi habitas. There we go. Very first thing that we come across is conversus. I believe this comes from converto, convertere, conversi, conversum. So this is a perfect passive participle. This US here tells us that it is nominative, singular, masculine. It means having been turned. Autem means however. Jesus, our US here tells us this is also nominative, singular, masculine, which means that we have our subject of our participle right there. Et is a conjunction. And based on videns, it looks like it's connecting conversus and videns together. This ENS here is our present active participle off of video, our stem right there. Nominative, singular, masculine. It means seeing. Just forgot how to spell there for a moment. Eos comes from is id. It is a demonstrative pronoun, them, because this os here we know that it is accusative, plural, and masculine. Sequentes, got int right here off of our present stem, and es as our case ending. This could either be nominative or accusative, plural, masculine or feminine, present active participle. This is, sorry, I shouldn't say active, because this is a deponent verb, though the present participle doesn't really have any passive forms to clearly show that, but we should still not identify it as active. Instead, say deponent. It's sequor. This means following. Since it is plural, and this is plural, and we know that Jesus is singular, nominative does not make sense, but accusative does make sense. Feminine does not make sense, but masculine makes sense, since this one is also masculine. So sequentes is acting as an attribute of eos. Se is either sui sibi sese, accusative or ablative. And it could be singular or plural. And then it doesn't have a gender really, because this one is used for everybody. Since this is a reflexive pronoun, that we know that it has to reflect back to the previous subject, which is Jesus, which means that it's going to be singular and not plural. And ablative doesn't make sense here, since sequentes doesn't take an ablative in its object. Instead, it takes an accusative, so that one does not fit, and that one does. So following him, sorry, we should capitalize that, comma. So what we have so far. However, Jesus having been turned, or just turned, and seeing them following him. Okay. Dicit here, since we have it here, and this is off of our present stem, we know that this is going to be third person, singular, present, active, and indicative. He says, eis is also from is id. This is going to be dative or ablative plural. And it doesn't really have a gender, since all 3 of the genders share the same form in this case. To them. And it's going to be dative because we want an indirect object, not a function of the ablative. This is a direct quote. Quid comes from quis quid. So this is, since it appears to be the object of the verb, it's probably going to be accusative, singular, neuter, though it could be nominative. It means what? Quaeritis. Quaer is our stem right here. Tis here is our personal ending, so that's going to be second person plural, present, active, indicative. Are, since it's a question, you seeking. End quote. We've got a new clause started right here. Qui comes from qui, quai. Yep, that's a terrible Q. And that's a terrible U. Ugh. Quod. And as I said, this one comes from quisquid, the interrogative version of these. So we could have either a nominative singular or nominative plural masculine, since we've got erant as our ending of the verb, that we know that this is nominative plural masculine. Who dixerant, this is the same word as dicit here, so we know that this is third plural perfect tense, is active and indicative. Said, or have said. A, also from isaed, except this time it's the singular, and it can only be the dative, singular, sorry, dative, singular, and it could be masculine, feminine, or neuter. They all, in this case, also share the exact same ending. To him, capitalized. Got another direct quote. Rabbi, since the rabbi is not a native Latin word or itself from Greek, we can't really parse this one because it's also not been Romanized. We're just going to have to leave it unmarked, though if we take a look ahead, eventually it'll tell us what form this thing actually is taking or would be taking in its own language. And it just means, which I still don't know how to spell, sorry. Very lazy on my part. Quod. Quod could either be the word that means because, or it could be from qui quod quod. Since we've got a verb here and it looks like it's got a passive ending, it's the same verb as this one. Third singular present passive indicative. This is probably going to be nominative singular neuter, though it could also be accusative singular neuter. Which, if we are correct about our function of this one, which would be the subject, it would be which is said. Interpretatum. This one looks like a first conjugation verb, the fourth principal part. Here tells us that it's probably going to be modifying quod, and that would make it not accusative, nominative singular neuter, and this is a perfect passive participle, which is said. Interpreted, this modifying that. Quote, magister. Magister is a second conjugation. Just taking a plain look at this, it looks like it could be the subject of this verb here, though based on this being set off on its own and these right here, the more likely of the case options, rather than being nominative, would actually be vocative. Singular, masculine, teacher, especially since they're speaking directly to him. Common in English. Ubi just means where or when, depending on what context you find. Students will almost always translate it as where when it means when, and vice versa. It's a very entertaining thing in my life. One must take entertainment where one can, I suppose. Habitas, don't mean that against any of you students. It's actually really funny whenever you do that. But I made the same mistake frequently. Habitas, here we've got alpha, not alpha sigma, this is Latin. As, this is second person singular. Our stem is habit, not hab. Two completely different verbs there, again, students. Second person singular, present, another mistake that I made many times. Active and indicative. Where are you, second person, living? Not having. That would be the other word. Question mark. End quote. End quote. And there we go. That's the entirety of verse 38. Let's take a look at it in its own context. However, Jesus having been turned, or just however Jesus turned, and seeing them following him, he says to them, "What are you seeking?" Who said to him, "Rabbi," which is said, interpreted, "Teacher, where are you living?" And now we would want to take a look at the greater context through verse 35. On another day, meanwhile, John was standing, and two from his disciples, and looking back at Jesus as he was walking, or at Jesus walking, he says, "Look, Lamb of God." And they heard him, the two disciples, him speaking, and they followed Jesus. However, Jesus, having been turned and seeing them following him, he says to them, "What are you seeking?" Who said to him, "Rabbi," which, I'm going to do it the better way in English, interpreted is said, "Teacher, where are you living?" And there we go. That's verse 38 in context. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this text has, first of all, not insulted you students, and second of all, has been helpful to all of you. I hope that you continue to join me as we get closer and closer to the end of this chapter. Have a good day.